Hi, this is Dan Heisman, Philly tutor for Chess FM, and this is the Improve Your Chess series for ICC members. In today's video, we're going to go over a 45-45 game from the ICC. This one's going to be a little bit different. Most of the games we show, even though a large percent are amateur games, we don't show too many lower amateur games because, they might not be as interested to most of the players, but we should show some occasionally, games that feature larger mistakes, how to take advantage of them, how to win with technique when you're way ahead, that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to do in today's video. Okay, in the game, white open d4, black plays d5. And now, of course, the most common move is c4, and the second most common move is knight f3. And occasionally you see e3, Cole system, or maybe bishop g5, kind of a neo-Trumpovsky. But here white plays knight c3. Now the general rule is you don't put your knight in front of your break moves. You don't put any piece in front of your break moves, and c4 is the main break move for white here. However, this does lead to the Veresov opening, which is an opening that is played at the Grandmaster level, even though it's not that common. But, you have to walk before you can run. And if you're not a really strong player and you're not playing a Veresovs on purpose, then it's probably not a great idea to be blocking your break moves like that. So when a 600 player plays that move, I say to the 600 player, very good, you got your knight out, you got it toward the center. When an 1100 player plays this move, I say, you don't really want to block your break moves unless you're doing it on purpose. And this is going to make your game a lot more cramped than if you had played the break move. And if a 1900 player plays it, then you say, oh, you're playing the Veresov. Very interesting. Let's see what happens. So, a lot of times it depends on who you're teaching. And of course, as a full-time teacher, one of the things you have to keep in mind is, who you're teaching and what you're trying to teach them. All right, so on the next move, black plays e6. Nothing wrong with that. If black wants to stop white from transposing, into a French or something, he can play knight f6, and that's where white would normally play something like bishop g5 with the Veresovs. When you play e6, you're allowing white to play e4, and that's going to be the main line of the classical French, as if the game had opened e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, reaching the same position. So e6 in that sense is less accurate unless you want to play the French. White says, no thanks, I'll play the really weird move b3. Now, if my opponent did that, and I didn't know anything about my opponent, I'd start to think he's either really, really good and he's playing some weird line, or he's really, really bad. And, he doesn't know that he's already spent one tempo opening up the line for his bishop, and now he's spending another tempo to give him another way to go. Well, the bishop can only go one way, so once you pick one way to go, you may as well go that way, otherwise you're just wasting time. So black plays bishop to b4. Well, the good news about that move is it attacks the dark squares and it hits the pinned knight. The bad news is that knight can be fairly easily guarded. And maybe this would be a better case of knights before bishops, maybe knight f6 or c5. If you play c5, then of course you can follow up with queen a5 on these kind of lines, and that's a whole different story. All right, so white plays bishop b2. The advantage of bishop to d2 is that there's no pin anymore, and if black puts more pressure on that knight, you can just move it. If you play bishop to b2, it fills in these holes on the queen side, but if black can manage to put more pressure on the knight, then white's got some problems. So here, black should try to play something like, knight f6 or c5. For instance, c5, d takes c5, d4. And now let's say white plays a3. Black can take. White takes here, black takes back. If white wants to castle queenside check or play rook d1 check, he can. And now